Hello, this is the third recipe I have tried in the Wizard's Cookbook. The recipe I'm trying is called Magical Gratin. It is inspired by the TV series Bewitched. Simple, simple recipe in that it does not have that many ingredients. So 1 onion, 2 pounds of tomato, 1 pound of ground beef, a bag of cheese, a box of macaroni, and some butter. 1 3/4 ounce butter. So not too many ingredients. Now, 1 onion, my husband is coarsely chopping it for me. He's chopping it for me because I cut myself earlier, and yeah, I got a little carried away cutting the onions, so he took over and is coarsely chopping it for me. So at this point, you should taste test your onion to make sure it's not too strong. I didn't, and the onion was way too strong. So now here I'm cutting tomatoes. You can see I have a Band-Aid on. Yeah, I'm just not good at cutting onions, but tomatoes, not a problem. So it is 2 pounds of tomatoes. Equivalent wise, I think it's around 4 cups of tomatoes. And yeah, these are Roma tomatoes that my dad grew in his garden. So always nice to utilize free vegetables from my dad. Alright, here is the box of macaroni. I used elbow. In the recipe picture, it looks like they used skinny macaroni. It doesn't say what kind to use. I just used elbow. Here I am cooking the beef hamburger. I just, cooking it on top of the stove. At this point, I should have realized the recipe is going to go wrong because they do not say flavor this hamburger. So it's going to be extremely bland at this point. I should have salt and peppered it, or at this point, actually, I wish I would have added the onions, because the onions needed to be cooked down, but the recipe doesn't say that. It says to add the onions later, so unfortunately, I followed the recipe exactly. Here I am with the tomato, the onion, I'm adding the macaroni. The macaroni is way too much, so I end up only using about 60% of the macaroni. Just when I'm stirring, I see that there's too much macaroni with the tomato and onion, so I don't use it all. Now I'm adding the hamburger, and at this point I'm thinking, wow, this looks a lot like Hamburger Helper. This looks like my high school cafeteria version of goulash. So I'm a little disappointed, because I'm just wondering, like, this, I don't understand. This isn't anything, there's nothing magical about this recipe, not whatsoever. At this point, this is my third recipe in this book, and I am wondering if anyone actually did taste tests. Oh, and then here's the butter, for whatever reason. Don't even know why the recipe calls for butter. Makes no sense. And now I add the cheddar cheese. Added about a cup. I mixed in a cup, and then the second cup that's left over, I am going to put that at the top. So at this point, I realize this is extremely bland. And so I stir it up, and I add salt and pepper. I add a lot of salt and pepper in hopes that it will save the recipe, but it doesn't. Anyway, going on to this book. I like this book. It has a lot of cute recipes, but I don't think anyone taste tested any of these recipes. I think someone took really nice pictures on some of the recipes, but this is my third recipe, and I have been disappointed with all three flavor-wise. So yeah, I'm using one big casserole dish because I don't have individual ramekins. Whether you put it in a ramekin or a big dish like this, it all cooks the same. It doesn't change the taste of the recipe. So since it's just me and my husband, I did the one big casserole dish. Now I add the rest of the cheese on top. And so yeah, to me it looks like a Hamburger Helper casserole, and I'm just frustrated at this point. And then you only bake it for 20 minutes in the oven at 350. That is not enough time to cook down the onion whatsoever. So yeah, here it is done after 20 minutes. I already can tell it's going to be flavorless. My husband is like just looking at me like, are you serious? Yeah. it is another failure. I do not recommend this recipe. It is very bland. We ate it. You know, my husband's a good sport, but this recipe, it's so bland. I don't recommend it. It is a cute cookbook to look at, but taste-wise, no. No, no, no.